I personally don't agree with that. I think that we can very easily say that we are an inclusive party. We love and respect people of all different backgrounds and to be free and live the lives they want. If we couple that with sweeping economic change that is going to have a clear villain in terms of what people can blame, which is a rigged economic and political system, not blaming people who are immigrants and trans, the villains that Donald Trump gave them.
So how do we prevent some of your colleagues from going down a very dark and dangerous path? What I mean by that is, I've been pointing this out since the election loss, that Kamala never mentioned race, she never mentioned gender, she never mentioned trans people or pronouns or Latinx or cancel culture or political correctness. She repeatedly stressed that she'd represent all Americans when she was asked about race or gender. She ran to the right on the border. She talked about owning a gun. She talked about freedom and patriotism. How do we prevent your colleagues from looking at this landscape and taking the easy way out, which is basically, hey, we're too extreme when it comes to trans people, or we're too extreme when it comes to immigrants or whatever? Because I think that's the easy answer if you don't want to take on corporate power and you don't want to take on the big money donors, is, hey, if we just throw trans people under the bus a little more, we just throw immigrants under the bus a little more, maybe we can win with a Republican light approach. But as we've seen time and time again, that's why John Kerry lost in 2004, for example. You could argue that's why Hillary lost in 2016, for example. So how do we prevent them from going down that path and refocus? No, you actually have to take on these powerful interests, these big money donors.
Well, two things first. First, I actually think we need to wade into the cultural issues instead of not talking about them, provide an affirmative vision for our sense of America. Like, Barack Obama didn't win by not talking about race. What he said is we need to be a multiracial democracy. We're not going to win by not talking about trans rights. We got to be willing to say, like, we believe people should be able to live the life that they want, and we think inclusion is better for America. Now, we shouldn't be canceling people who disagree with us. We have to have civility. But I don't think the answer is either rejecting the vision of an inclusive America or not talking about it. Like, we need to make the affirmative case. People respond to strength. They respond to some people who have conviction. And I actually think it was a mistake for Harris to totally avoid talking about those things instead of mixing it up, going on podcasts like this and talking honestly about issues of race and gender and how people felt and what her hopeful vision was of America. That said, I don't think that's enough. Ultimately, we have to offer sweeping economic change and being willing to call certain things out. Like, Larry Lessig and I have an op-ed coming out saying you shouldn't be pawns to billionaires, whether they're billionaires on our side, such as Gates and Bloomberg and Soros are pouring in billions of dollars, or billionaires on their side with Elon Musk. Let's get behind a very simple thing, the Maine initiative that says you got to restrict contributions to super PACs. I want to get rid of super PACs, but at least restrict contributions. We need to be on the side of first saying we don't want the concentration of wealth and power. We do want to be taxing this wealth. If the guy who represents a lot of the wealth in Silicon Valley can say that, it's not a hard thing to be for. And that we're going to have a massive program of economic revival and higher wages in these places, and willing to call out a system that isn't working for many people. I think there's more openness to that than I've ever heard before. I am convinced. I know you're a Jon Stewart guy. I'm convinced if Bernie Sanders were 15 years younger, he would win the presidency in a second in 2028. Like, I have no doubt. Now, whether someone can replicate Sanders is totally, in terms of some of the issues, is totally different issue. But I think Sanders has been vindicated, and now it's for us to really fight for that agenda. I would add to it a production agenda, but there's a large part of Sanders' critique that has been vindicated.
Yeah, I think that's right. I wanted to ask you a little bit about, do you think that there's a danger, too, of Republicans overreaching on any number of issues, but to stay focused on transgender issues? I mean, they just had this really ugly spectacle of Congresswoman Nancy Mace, just viciously bullying first transgender woman member of Congress and making a big spectacle of herself. She posted literally hundreds of times on social media about this one bathroom in Capitol Hill and who is and isn't going to be allowed to use it. And I think, to me, outside of just, how voters feel on the issue, what they don't like is when it feels like powerful people are fixated on those issues versus what's going to actually impact them in their day-to-day lives.
So you're absolutely right. And they don't like bullying and they don't like hate. I mean, they have some sense of nuance. It's interesting you bring up Nancy Mace because I was on a panel with her at Georgetown, moderated by Charlemagne the God. There was a transgender activist who got up and was protesting her, and she went on this rant saying, well, I don't want a penis in my bathroom, and, just using what I thought was hateful language. And so I said, Nancy, we worked on bills together, but I just need to tell you, I have a profound disagreement with your view. That she said, well, you're on the wrong side of history. Charlemagne's telling me, let's get going. This is supposed to be a tech issue, not transgender issues. I said, no, I need to say this, that we need to treat Representative McBride with dignity and respect, and those are our values. And then my team was like, oh, I don't know if you want to post this. I was like, yes, we're going to post the clip. And she's been now going after me. But my point is, I think that's an overreach by the Republicans. People may have mixed feelings and values on trans folks playing very, very competitive sports, but there's no tolerance for just hate and bullying, in my view. And our party needs to stand for something. Even if my view is 30 to 70, people ultimately say, hey, you know what? Ro Khanna stands for something. He stands for speaking out. And I think too often we're not willing to take clear stances.
Yeah, can I just to echo that a little bit? We just posted today, so you won't have had an opportunity to see it, but we went and interviewed some of those AOC Trump voters. They were all working class women. No bros were willing to take the call and do the interview with us. But one of the things that really came out to me was that they liked just the sense that Trump on one end and AOC on the other end were fighters. You heard that from them. They were like, they mean what they say, and they're going to go out there and fight for it. And of course, as someone on the left, like, it drives me crazy to think that, Donald Trump is going to fight for ordinary people when there's zero record of that, quite the opposite record whatsoever. But it kind of speaks to this point that the way liberals typically think about politics of like, let me get all of the issues poll tested, let me focus group it, and if we go down the checklist and my issue set is a little more popular than their issue set, we're going to win. That's not really the way politics works. And if it was the way politics works, Kamala Harris would be waltzing easily into the White House and Democrats would be winning in like 45 out of 50 states.
Was that a waltz pun? That's pretty good. But look, I completely agree with you. And I think you have to fight, but you have to fight in what's true to who you are. There are a lot of different ways of fighting, right? There's the Donald Trump way of fighting, and then someone who I admire, AOC's way of fighting. And then there's fighting the way Gandhi fought or Nelson Mandela fought. There's quiet ways of fighting or ways of fighting that you don't have to be the loudest person in the room. The question isn't how you fight or the spectacle of the fighting or what you wear, whether you wear a suit or whether you wear jeans. The question is, are you a person who takes stands? Are you a person of conviction? Are you willing to stand up for what you believe, regardless of the consequences? And I think what people loved about Bernie Sanders was that he was taking those stands for 40 years. It wasn't how he went about fighting or now I love all these pundits. Oh, you need a villain and you need a plot. And no, it's not. That's just as manufactured. What you need is clear convictions and principles in a sense of demonstrating to people that you're willing to stand on them even when it's inconvenient.
So let me ask you this question. This is, I read an article about this the other day, and I felt like a light bulb moment where I was like, oh, that actually makes perfect sense. If I had to sum up for somebody one reason why Kamala lost, the failure of the original Build Back Better bill comes to mind. So that bill had paid family leave, childcare, universal pre-K, free community college, expanding Medicare, higher minimum wage, lowered all prescription drug prices, not just some, and it expanded the child tax credit. If that bill passed, do you think the result would have been different? And also, can't we just come out and say Manchin and Sinema are directly to blame for the loss, and therefore that version and flavor of politics should be ostracized from the party?
I absolutely think if half of those things had passed, we would have won. Yeah. I've cited AMLO, who raised the minimum wage for $4.65 a day, because that's what it was in Mexico, every year to $14.50, and was one of the reasons an incumbent party won pretty decisively.